Hi guys! Today I wanted to show you one of my ZBrush speed sculpts. To be honest, this is my first ever YouTube video, so I don't expect here to be a lot of views, but if you are watching it, thank you for support. I hope you will like it. So, Dune movie. By now probably everybody watched it, but if you haven't, you should totally check it out. If you have, you're already familiar with Atreides, the movie's protagonist played by Timothee Chalamet, and this is the hero of our video today. Let's start. First thing first, I gather references. Different positions, different lighting, hair and clothes, everything that can be useful. And then I start sculpting. Pretty much like everybody else, I start with a sphere for a face and then sculpt some basic shapes. My main goal for now is to get some realistic face block out. I don't worry too much about the references for now, neither I do for details. I found that for me it works best to achieve some good general face shape and only then go into that kind of details. Otherwise, I go in too deep with likeliness, caring about the shape of the nose, eyes, etc. and starting to waste too much effort for that kind of details while missing some overall features. I also don't put references on top of the sculpt to adjust my work to the picture until some later sculpting stages. At the beginning of the process, it gets too much in the way of fitting the proper shape and proportions, and it makes more damage than help. So I sculpt by eye, and only when it's starting to look like references and I just need some more precision, this is when image projection is nice to have. Also keep in mind that it can be tricky with the camera settings of the scene and actual camera parameters the photo was taken with. You want to have these aligned as much as possible or it can just ruin your work. As you see, I add eyes on really early sculpting stages since it helps with the perception of proportions, shape and anatomy in general. Nothing fancy, just two symmetrical spheres. I also decide what emotion should I sculpt. Mostly I make it neutral since it's more popular for 3D assets, unless I want to study emotions in particular. Then I just add more and more details. Also, sometimes it happens that whatever you're making just doesn't look right. Then I just simply delete it all and start over. Yep, you heard it right. I was actually wondering if I should include this part. My goal was to show you how the process of sculpting looks like, and well, sometimes starting over is a part of it. And believe it or not, it's an important skill that will save you an enormous amount of time. I know it doesn't sound right, how starting something over can do anything but waste your time, but hear me out. You could make 10, 20 great works. I'm talking any creative work, like classic art, 2D art, 3D art and others, and somehow 21st one will just not go. I hope you know what I mean. They're just those days or projects that don't go as planned and you don't know why. For me, I make about 85% of sculpts in a first go. For others, it takes around 20 minutes to see that particular face isn't working for me. The task can be no different from my other models, maybe even simpler, but sometimes I see that the model is not going the right direction and I don't see exactly where the problem is right away. In that case, I give myself maybe 5 more minutes, and if I'm not back on track, I just start over. The thing is, I could spend another 30 minutes to try and figure out what was wrong, or try to move randomly vertices hoping that something will work, or I can spend this time making a model from scratch. But you have to remember that main task of the speed sculpt is to know how to get better and faster. And starting over is an amazing way to train yourself to sculpt faster in the first try. Learning from Elsa to let it go worked wonders for me. I create so much more complicated models just in a few hours compared to what I was able to make just a few years ago. This was a huge game changer for me, and maybe I will talk more about it in one of my next videos. Let me know if this topic would be interesting for you. Let's get back to our model. I check references and add changes to the shape bit by bit. At this stage, I still sculpt mostly by eye, comparing photos with my work, but from time to time I put references on top of my work screen to compare them to my sculpt. Depending on the project, I also use anatomy references from time to time. Usually I remember most shapes and proportions, but it's always nice to have some good anatomy examples on your references list, especially if there are not much materials to the main character. For example, I had enough photos of the actor, but didn't find any good references for the ear since he has pretty long hair, so I just took a random ear photos. At this point, I don't worry much about topology or very small details like pores, that's why Dynamesh is good enough for me now, so I just work more on general shape of the face using this tool. While working on a face, I totally screwed the skull shape, so I just go and fix it. It's totally fine to go back to some parts to fix them. When you work on a head, every part is connected, so fixing one thing can ruin another one. So there are two things to remember. First one, to check overall look of the model, especially after big changes, and second thing, not to go into the details too early, while overall shapes are not precise, or you will just add yourself more work. When my head shape is more or less fine, I add ears. Any basic shape will work. I prefer cylinder. I use Dynamesh every time I need to recalculate topology or add some level of details. Since it's just a sculpt practice without any texturing or shading, I will add pupil also as a sculpt, similar to the way classic clay sculptors do. After that, I mask torso to get sweater base out of it. There are many ways to do it. I decided to duplicate the torso mesh, split unmasked part, and close the hole with Dynamesh. I don't plan to change mesh a lot at this stage, so it's time for a bit better topology than Dynamesh can give you. That's why I use zero measure and then I add a bit more of details to the sweater. After I unhide other parts, I will adjust sweater mode to fit the body. Using references, I mask one with the parts and extrude it. After applying extrude, borders are automatically masked, so I use this mask to create a poly group. Then I split this border to more poly groups. Every sharp part is a new poly group. This way it will be easy to smooth the detail but keep the sharp edges with the Smooth by Group modifier. I noticed my torso looks too small, so I make it a bit bigger. After some more adjustments, I join all face subtools, then I join their topology into one mesh with Dynamesh. After smoothing all the joining areas, I add some sharp details where needed. Those were my last big changes to the mesh, so it's time to create better topology. Then I just work more on my model, use photo and anatomy references when needed. I also go back to the lower subdivision layers when I need to work more on big shapes and go to high levels to sculpt small skin details. Now it's time for hair, and I will start with eyebrows. Usually for the final asset, hair is in general made either with groom, this technique is used for CG mostly, or with planes and hair textures, techniques that used for game dev. But since we are working only on sculpting, we will not get to use any of those methods. Why not to leave the model as it is then? Well, simple reason is that the model not only looks better with hair, but also it adds a lot of the recognition to the character. So as you see, I added eyebrows with a curve brush. I used the same one I will use for hair. I added shape and add details to it. Hair creating process doesn't have one recipe for all cases. It depends on the art style, haircut, type of hair, etc. For this particular hair, I decided to start with creating scalp out of the head model. So I masked an extruded hair base and then sculpted some shape to it. After hair base is done, I start to make single hair clumps with curves. You can use any curve brush, you can buy or make one yourself, or even download some of the free ones. I set the curve size, profile, edit the shape a bit. After I'm satisfied with the shape, I duplicate it and move it, so I can use it as a base afterwards. To make it a bit different, I bend it some more. I started with main strokes of the bangs, the part that is closest to the face. This way I can see how the most visible hair clumps look, decide on the style and size. After I'm all set, I go to the bottom of the head back and create hair from bottom to top, stroke by stroke, hair by hair, layer by layer. I find this to be the easiest way to create messy hair like that. It gives you more control and readable hierarchy. One of the life hacks for creating nice hair sculpt is that one stroke cannot be straight from any point of view, so you just rotate and bend it in every possible direction. After I finish one layer, I simply duplicate it and move up. Then I mirror it, change the size and randomly bend strokes a bit more. I go up creating layer by layer. Sometimes I duplicate strokes and sometimes I create brand new ones. With added hair, I decided that head looks way too big again, so I make chest even bigger. When I make top of the head hair, I create one half and then mirror it to the side. Use duplicates and mirror whenever possible to speed up your work, but you have to be careful to not make hair too symmetrical or generic. Always give it a bit of randomness after making a copy. After checking with references again, I decided that hairstyle I created was a bit too messy. I like the way every clump bends into a similar way on top of the head, so I started to make it look a bit more organized. I used inflate deformation to make hair a bit thicker. After I'm satisfied with overall hair shape, I turn all the layers into one hair subtool, then duplicate it and move it a bit, just to make it visible. This is one of the techniques I discovered while looking for a way to make hair faster. This is also an amazing way to make even messy hairstyle a bit more soft and calm. I use the technique for making realistic characters since it works wonders and looks tense and realistic enough. Now I want to add some more details to the armor, so it will not look that plain. I use frame mesh tool and polygroups to make curve around the mesh. This is fast and precise way to make that kind of details. I also decided to create one more part for the shoulder armor, the exact same way we did before. Now I just add more overall details. Last thing is lashes. Sometimes I add them, sometimes I don't. For this model I created them the same way I made hair, with hair groove brush. And tada! The Atreides model is good to go. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and follow if you did.